a wise woman once said, the truth is out there. But if the U.S. government is to be believed, the truth is that there are no aliens. Sad. New article by Sean Kirkpatrick, who's the former director of the Defense Department's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, asserts that while whistleblowers like David Grusch may have wild allegations and claims, they're a bit thin on the evidence. Kirkpatrick wrote in Scientific American that during a full-scale, year-long investigation of the UFO story, which has been told and retold by a small group of interconnected believers and others with possibly less than honest intentions, that's a quote from him, none of whom have firsthand accounts of any of this. Again, quoting from Sean Kirkpatrick. He discovered a few things, and none of them are about aliens, he says.
Nevertheless, Grusch is persisting in his claims that the government is hiding information about visitors from beyond the stars. Here he is on News Nation previewing an op-ed he plans to publish on the topic.
Well, I couldn't be very upfront about my firsthand knowledge until recently. I got some other security approvals through the pre-publication and security review process. And I did have some firsthand knowledge of some specific parts of the program. I'm currently drafting an op-ed that I'm going to release in a few weeks, and I will be discussing what I actually do know firsthand.
Now, in this article, he quotes Carl Sagan as saying extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And he basically has a three-prong rationale as to why, Kirkpatrick is the author of the Scientific American article, as to why there's just no there with respect to aliens. And I want to ask you what you make of this first one. First, he says, no record exists of any president or a living DOD or intelligence community leader knowing about this alleged program, nor any congressional committee having such knowledge. This, he says, should speak volumes if this case were following typical procedure, because it is inconceivable that a program of such import would not ever have been briefed to the 50 to 100 people at the top of the USG over the decades of its existence. What do you make of that?
Look, cards on the table. I do find I'm skeptical of some of the skepticism, as I've expressed on the show, because there are these sensational claims, which could be true. I don't find the claims implausible on their own, but then there is no okay, what you're saying, you know someone who knows something, but we can never hear from that person directly. It's like trying to capture a mirage in the desert or something, when by the time you get there, it's gone. That's how it feels like dealing with these questions. However, it is exactly columns, written statements from people like Sean Kirkpatrick here that make me at least want to cast my lot with the skeptics, because a lot of this kind of makes my eye rolls when he's saying absolutely nothing to see here. It has a veneer of how dare you question the science, frankly, in this article. Like, it begins with, in today's world of misinformation, conspiracy-driven decision-making, sensationalist dominant coverance, all this stuff. Well, like, okay, but those people who are screaming at you about spreading misinformation have to my view, often discounted some genuine information that is not conspiracy, particularly relating to COVID and some other matters. So that makes me skeptical when I'm hearing government agency people yelling at me that asking questions is like somehow participating in a conspiracy theory.
My thoughts on that paragraph are that when he says it should speak volumes, that if typical procedure were followed, many people should have known about this. Well, that begs the question whether typical procedure would be followed in an extraordinary case involving extraterrestrial life, depending on what the national security implications are of that sort of discovery. So I didn't find that to be especially compelling. I think that it's very clear that this could be something that is not briefed to the level of the president, that this is something, I think the allegation how it's always been something that was very much deep state and suppressed, and that very few people were privy to. The second argument that he makes is that this narrative has been simmering for years, that it's largely an outgrowth of a former program at the DoD's Defense Intelligence Agency called the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program that was heavily influenced by a group of individuals associated with this businessman and longtime ufologist Robert Bigelow, founder of Bigelow Aerospace. And that in 2009, Harry Reid, who's been a big UFO guy interested in figuring this stuff out, asked the Secretary of Defense to set up a special access program to protect the alleged material, the UFO material, UAP material, that those proponents believed were being hidden. They declined to do so. And concluded that not only did such material not exist, but that taxpayer money was being inappropriately spent on this research. So basically, someone who had in good faith was interested in looking at this material and protecting this material, Harry Reid, when that request was made, that they couldn't because there was nothing there to protect, and that is in itself evidence that no material exists.
I mean, that cuts both ways. Let's not forget that the Pentagon has failed 6 audits in a row. They've misplaced billions of dollars. They do it every year. They don't know where they've sent the money we're spending on our national security. Given how sprawling and clumsy our federal bureaucracy is capable of being, it is not actually inconceivable that a program which is alleged to be super secretive and, as you point out, not going through normal political channels, perhaps not even something the president is briefed on or aware of, could be either that information could be either have been destroyed or is being kept somewhere. It's been lost track of. I mean, the government they lose track of money. This year, last year, they lost track of money they spent elsewhere in the world. So that is not by itself disqualifying. I do think the fact that these witnesses who have come forward and not given us more yet, that makes me go more in the direction of counter-skepticism. But the mere fact that the government is saying, oh, we can't find any of these records, so they probably don't exist, that doesn't do anything for me at all.
And that's his last point, that the key purveyors of this narrative have known each other for decades, and that it's the same small group that keeps characterizing and recharacterizing the evidence or lack thereof that's there, and that should lead us to be skeptical. I mean, at a certain point, even if it were deeply suppressed and not common knowledge within the government, something that was kept below the knowledge of the President of the United States even, would you presume that over a multi-decade program that eventually you would get more whistleblowers, different people from different sort of sectors than what Kirkpatrick argues is an interconnected group of people who are all kind of banding around the same argument with each other?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the argument if you compare to something like, compare to COVID, compared to lab leak. We're getting, the government is not telling us everything they know. We have not gotten access to the raw intelligence that caused, for instance, the Energy Department to conclude that a lab leak is more likely than natural origin. But because of the great work of organizations like Right to Know and the White Coast Waste Project, the people we featured on our show a number of times, Alina Chan, Emily Kopp, I actually think Emily's going to be on again tomorrow to talk about new disclosures. We are getting at least some documents showing, for instance, the Eco Health Alliance proposals. We're getting stuff. People are working at it, and we're getting some documents. We're not getting nearly everything that we want. So I guess the argument would be, well, if there are UFO whistleblower and disclosure people who've been working in the same way that these people are working on COVID or lab origins, if they've been working on that for 50 years and there's nothing, what does that tell you? But on the other hand, it could tell you that this is at a level of secrecy so high and so vast, it's totally outside the political project, which maybe that sounds plausible to people who are more worried about how the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, is able to operate sans political constraints. All
right, let us know what you think of the Kirkpatrick article. Weigh in the comments and stick around. We have more Rising for you right after this.